Okay. Hello. Welcome back to another one of my hikes. Come. And welcome to the channel that has it all. Spiritual advice from a Barbarian. Lunatic. Yeah, is giving you another hike or so with the peeing dog, the world's most famous dog. So today I say hey. I made a song. It felt not wrong. In the morning I felt strong. And then I heard the gong. And then weakness came again. It's like a passing sensation. Power. Harvesting power. Storing it up. I had an intention for this walk. I was thinking about... Come. Yeah. I was thinking about walking, and now I'm walking. Amy, come. And here we are, and there you are. The idea I had was I wanted to go a bit nuts on spirituality. I know it's just a word, but connected to that word are a lot of things, you know, terms like higher self, or, you know, I'm already at a loss now what else to say. Because generally, yeah, no, letting go, let go, it always says that in my mind. Let go of this, let go of your desires. Yeah, I know you really are sniffing it all. Yeah, it's like having a whiff of where you want to be. Do you need to shit or what? Well, that looks like shitting. It's like the posture, you know, the way she's like holding her tail, and you know this isn't peeing because there's a lot of tension. Yeah, and so she shits it all out. What a relief. I have a bag. In that bag was formerly air. Now there's shit in it. Yeah. Just released a new song called The Sea You Swim In. It's part of an album that hasn't been released yet, and it's called Experimental. Okay, going mental. Yeah. Mental abilities. What does that mean? It's a really weird term. Going mental. But you also have like mental or psychic abilities. That's so strange. So, what I really like to do sometimes is take the edge off and to look at the world in a completely different way than the ordinary, narrow-minded, ignorant person. Ignorant of an entire world of emotion. They're just like slaves to it. Yeah, they're just slaves to their emotions. I'm going down here. Sitz. Und sniff. Yeah, sniff, sniff, lick, lick. That's what dogs like to do. They do sniff, sniff, and then they do lick, lick. Yeah, and then they do woof, woof. And you think, oh, what a cute dog. Yeah. And then the dog is whining, and you think, oh, what a petty thing. Doesn't get his needs fulfilled. Yeah. That's like patronizing. Right? You can walk the dog. You know, I've said that already. I'm gonna say it again. It's just like, you know, sometimes I'm clinging to stuff I've said already, but at the same time, you know, I've said so much stuff already at this point, you know, it's all repetition anyway. And that's what you have to do in order to grow, of course. It's repetition. You know, it's like they say it in Avatar, field stripping a weapon. You know, like learning a language is like field stripping a weapon. It's like repetition, repetition, repetition. So I'm repeating certain parts of my life. You know, it's like, okay, relationships never worked. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Yeah, but also, why did relationships never work? Okay, then it gets more difficult, because now you actually have to look for the source of your dilemma. And you have to give yourself credit for creating it alongside everybody else. Yeah? Maybe you've learned from people who are good at recreating their dilemmas because they're unaware, they don't pay attention, they don't take the time. You could say they don't have the time, but that is just an excuse. Yeah, you talk to people and they say they cannot stop smoking because whatever, right? And then they'll create a kind of a map or a treasure map, yeah, so that they can follow it, and in the end it will always bring them back to, oh, I think I just have to smoke then, yeah, because I never managed to be happy without smoking, so I just have to keep smoking. You know, that's also something I like to nag about people, to nag them about psychedelics, because it is my very strong and firm belief that some people simply shouldn't take them. Like, should never have taken them in the first place. Well, that's the thing, they're available. And so people take it without knowing what to do with it. And that's why, in a sense, you know, why not just tell people how to take them? The state rather keeps that quiet. And pushes these people into basements. Yeah, the basement of I judge you because you're smoking cannabis. Und hier, Fuß. Yeah, you're smoking cannabis, and therefore you must be bad, so we want nothing to do with you. Yeah, so you're on your own. So they don't even try to understand it, because they're afraid of it. Okay. Now I've set the scene. Also paying attention to little Miss Doggy. Yeah, that she doesn't run into a car. Because I'm responsible, so I have to make sure she's okay. Yeah, the state wants to be responsible, but they don't make sure that people are covered, right? I mean, they only catch you in the sense of, we're going to bring you to a hospital und los. But they don't offer you this kind of insight, because that's the kind of insight that I had to gather by myself, because I've been tried by life, right? You either win or lose or something. You know, I at least wanted to try. I wanted to give it a shot. You know, it's like playing chess. I've told you in the last video that I'm, you know, I could say I'm really proud of it, but I also don't want to patronize it, because it's doing a very good job of being what it wanted to be. So yeah, I'll just let that video be what it is in the space that I created. It's called Neutro Unleashed. I've been having a little joke with myself, and the thing is, I could explain the joke to you, and I might actually just do that. Because that's what actually makes life interesting for me. You see, if I want to name a video, for some reason, you know, all the other names I've already used, because I've named so many things already. I mean, I'm basically peeing all over the internet and saying that's my territory. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, I'm like terrorizing all kinds of platforms, and I'm saying, you know, I've left my mark here. And so, spirituality, what I often discover, people, they think because I'm spiritual, you know, I have to be really nice now. And they go around helping people, and then they start hating that, because as much as you help people, you know, most people won't have anything to give back to you, not even a thank you, which is one reason why I stopped saying thank you, unless maybe I'm really grateful for something somebody did for me. You know, somebody asked me, what do you need from the shops? I say, peanut butter with the blue lid without crunches, you know, and then that person brings it to me and I say thank you, you know, because I really enjoy eating that. And I've eaten nothing else except for like nuts. So I just ate oats with peanut butter, you know, put stuff in there like coconut fat, yeah, oats, coconut fat, hot water on top, bit of mango, peanut butter, yeah, it all soaks into kind of a creamy mass, and then I stir it around. And that's an insight I had while stirring the previous bowl, which wasn't that much before the follow-up bowl of oats with peanut butter, except for that the previous one had banana in it. And I was sitting in my room, I was stirring it, and I thought maybe I wasn't even sitting in my room, maybe I was standing in the kitchen, you know, who knows, not that important. You know, the important thing is that while I was stirring those oats, I had this insight, and I was comparing what people are trying to do with their lives with stirring the contents of a bowl and realizing that's a bit full. Yeah, the bowl seemed a bit full. And that makes it, or might make it, quite difficult to stir it, and then you might spill stuff, and that might make you really angry because you weren't paying attention to the amount of stuff the bowl could hold. Yeah, that's a metaphor, okay? Now, if you listen to really smart and supposedly enlightened people, you know, like spiritually high beings, you know, they all often have proverbs, I believe the word is, where you give something like an example, yeah? Now, how do you get that, yeah? I mean, apparently you're really greedy for spirituality, and therefore I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Well, you just have to pay attention to everything you're doing and then focus somehow loosely on, or open up, you know, now it's getting a little bit harder. You open up to what you feel, and you're kind of like reverberating into your inside. Yeah, so you're kind of hollow on the inside because because if you would have done it, you wouldn't watch my stuff. You know, I did it. I did a lot of cleansing. You know, I ate a lot of anorganic sulfur to get rid of all the shit. I did a lot of rapé sessions, you know, hiking, like intense exercising, thinking, contemplating, suffering, you know, all those words, reflection, yeah, gathering stuff, making experiences on the outside and on the inside. Yeah, and that means at a certain point you become somewhat empty, yeah? And if the cup is full, you can't really put anything in there, you know? So we're gonna stay with Avatar, because what does the Sajik, how's she called? The mother of Neytiri, if that's how it's pronounced. Yeah, and she says, the Jek Sully, it is hard to fill a cup that is already full. And then he answers, you know, because he's a smart ass, my cup's empty, believe me. Dr. Augustine thinks so too. Or something like that. Yeah? And so, right, if you have a full cup, and what does full mean? I mean, I've talked adequately about this. Emotions, yeah, letting go, okay? Concept. Yeah, hear it, think about it, work with it. Ideas, opinions, cup is full. Now, the people in this state have a full cup because they're full of fear, because they have to get, like, keep this shit show running. And sniff, sniff. So, you know, their cup is full. I mean, they don't have a lot of stuff they can do to, you know, they don't have a lot of freedom. What? What's that? Da, 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 da. Ja, das denkt sie sich auch.
Hm?
Das denkt sie sich auch.
Oh, ein schönes Tier.
Ja.
Was ist das?
Ein Hund. Eine Seele.
Hallo. Aber könnte ich gar nicht sagen, was da drin ist.
Auf jeden Fall hat sie ein schönes Wesen. Sehr ruhig.
Er ist ein Bolonka, er ist auch total wieder. Aber er ist noch ganz jung, er ist mal gerade 10 Monate alt.
Okay.
Und
So.
total spielt.
Ja, aber auch so eine ruhige Art. Aber gut,
Ja.
sie kann auch auftreten. So. Ich muss auch weiter, sonst wird es zu dunkel.
Ja, ich muss auch.
Okay. Hopp, hopp. So. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, you know, it's usually what I get back to. It's the point of everything I say is figure it out for yourself. So today she found a playmate. My playmate at the moment is the internet. That to me is fine because I can be silent most of the day, but I also have to pay attention. Yeah, because nobody tells me how I feel, so I have to feel these things. And that's why I make sure that before I go and record a video, I at least prepared myself to do so. And that's important because I know that's what I want to do today. So the only thing that stands in the way of doing so is me. Now I could say, Amy, I could say I already did a lot, and I also could have walked slower so that I would have been able to talk to that guy. But you know, he's walking very slowly. He is walking really slowly. And I feel like I have to get somewhere. And I do. No, I cannot. No, it's his dog. Amy, komm, Fuß. Fuß. Und jetzt hopp, 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 hopp. Hopp, hopp, hopp. Wir müssen weiter. Hopp. Das kriegen wir doch irgendwie hin. Naja. Yeah, sometimes it's like a trade-off, right? She wants to play, okay. But there's also cars. But yeah, at least there's not really anything driving here at the moment. So sometimes you walk alone, sometimes you walk with others. Now, to me, how I feel is that spirituality, amongst others, is a way to connect with spirit. Now, you can only do that if you retreat to the inside, because that's where you can feel and see who you are apart from other people. Tja, Amy, komm.
Komm.
Ja, jetzt brauchst du ja nicht mehr rumschnüffeln. Komm, hopp.
Komm, Molti. Möchtest du Leckerchen? Lucky, möchtest du Leckerchen? Lucky. Das ist der Liebe, oder?
Ja.
Komm, Leckerchen.
Amy, hier. Und los. Hopp,
Lucky.
hopp, hopp, hopp.
Du kleiner Gauner.
Nee, da wird nicht gerammelt. Das ist kein Hund zum Rammeln. Ja?
Das kann er, glaube ich, noch gar nicht.
Er hat es versucht zumindest.
Ja, aber. Hey! Ja, und jetzt?
Und hopp.
Drecksack. Lucky, rein jetzt. Rein jetzt.
Und komm.
Rein jetzt. Feierabend.
Hopp, 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 hopp.
Feierabend haben wir nicht verstanden.
Hopp. Aber der ist flink.
Ja. Geil ist er.
Hopp, hopp, hopp.
Kleine Drecksack. Lucky.
Amy, hier, hier, hier. Und Sitz. Sitz.
Komm her. Sitz.
So geht das. Danke sehr.
Ich hab zu danken für den Besuch.
Ja. Schönen Tag noch. Cheers. All right. So And there was also something funny about that show I was watching. Because sometimes you've got something, you have an inner spark. And then people come and they want to really like ram you. Amy. Fuß? Sitz? Yeah. So she's a female. And that little runt, you know, it was a small dog. Don't have to give him a name like a runt, but that's how I feel like. He wanted to mount her. And that's how it often is. You've got something to give, you know, because you are, in that sense, maybe there are things like higher developed souls. It's really hard to say. Because some people, they come here and they're like ready to go. And others, they're like tiptoeing around. They don't really know what's going on. Psychedelics are for more developed souls. You know, if that exists, you know, I'm at a point I don't actually know whether souls exist or not. It doesn't really matter. It's just something to cling to think, oh, I'm a soul and I came here with a contract and I'm gonna meet all kinds of people. But maybe that's not how it is at all. Maybe in a way it is all random. It's just the question of, can you work with that randomness? So can you open up to chaos? No, or is chaos going to destroy you? That's how I believe it is. Actually, because everything else just makes it really, really complicated to stay in your own place. Because if you think, oh, there's somebody out there who's destined to be my soulmate, I mean, it's really hard to stay in one place because you always think, you know, I ought to be somewhere else. And that's basically how I've been living most of my life. I always felt like I had somewhere else to be. And now, the place where I feel like actually I want to be is my own space. Oh. Yeah, and I want to do what I want to do. But as soon as I leave the house, und Sitz, people come and they say stuff, yeah, and they want to be important and they want to be heard, yeah, they want all kinds of things. My perspective is, if you want to be important, you know, yeah, you could go into politics, you could become a lawyer because you think I'm gonna change something. When I say change yourself, and what you learn, share it. You know, in whatever way you want to share it. Yeah, and sure, maybe you want to be a lawyer, but don't be overly disappointed if lawyerhood is gonna suck you in and turn you into one of their corrupt people. Because that's also partly how the game is played. Because the system in itself is corrupt. Because there are all kinds of people that don't really want to help anyone. They only want to help themselves. They just want to stand on a stage and be important. Right? It's people that have nothing to say by themselves. So they have people writing, you know, writing their speeches, and all they do is have to be like a figurehead. And I say, if you want to be important, you know, don't go running around looking for other people, you know, to give you the feeling that you're important. First, give importance to yourself. Like, become important in your own life, in your own right. Yeah. I just want to stay here. Right? I think like... Yeah, come. Yeah, she had a bit of like regurgitating today. Since you don't know what that means. But for now, it means I'm just gonna keep going. Because if I stop. But yeah, if she's really doing bad, I'm gonna, I don't know, wrap her in a blanket and carry her or something. You know, there's always a way. Because I know how to handle myself. Because I give importance to my being. Because whatever I am, whether that is a soul or a high or low being, you know, I know that there's things like frequencies. And if I vibrate down here in the lower regions of myself, you know, that's like fear and anger, I will destroy all that is good in that sense. So I want to have balance. Yeah, that means energy has to flow. I'm here, I'm walking. You see, it's very hard for me to talk about anything at all without first talking about the basics. If I want to play chess and I keep losing and I don't work on the reasons why I'm losing, I will keep losing or I will stop playing. Now I want to keep playing life, I want to keep playing chess. So instead of just submitting to my mediocrity complex, what else am I going to do? I'm going to rise above by nourishing myself with the knowledge that is available on chess. And that's a tough one. Yeah, that's a really tough one, because there's so many people playing chess out there or talking about chess. You know, everybody who once played chess thinks he can write a book about it. You might read that. You may never learn how to play chess, because then you're trying to play chess like them instead of playing chess like you. So to me, the trick is to observe others while you're playing them. Or like me, I watched the Queen's Gambit that taught me a few things about chess. And then I fill myself with information regarding chess. And when I play chess, I just go blank. I try not to think. It's hard, because sometimes you just have to take a breather and think about your next move, because maybe you're too eager to win, while maybe right now it's your place to lose. You know, maybe you aren't ready to win yet. Yeah, and maybe this time it's not your place to win. So, you know, to me it's more about the game than about winning or losing. And now you can already tell how much I already learned about playing the game of life and death. It's like Game of Thrones or something. You win or you die, yeah? And every person, every circumstance is like a set of chess pieces arranged on a board. And then you can learn to work with that. And there's probably a reason why there's 64 chess pieces. I believe the I Ching also has 64, whatever it is, sticks or something. I heard Terence McKenna talk about this once. No. It's like every path that opens in front of me is like a possible move. But every time I have to look at my feeling and think, wait, do I want to move here? Right? So the more you sit down and concern yourself with chess, the more you're going to fill yourself with chess information. But the thing is, you can watch a million chess games, yeah? You can play a million chess games. You can watch them, you can play them, you can read thousands of books. But the thing is, you are always going to be a somewhat controlled chess player Yeah, because you're afraid to lose, because you really want to win. You think, I need that win. No. What you need is to let go of the idea of winning or losing. Yeah, in the end it's winning and losing. In order to play, yeah, you see an opening for a win. And then you take that opening. And maybe next time there's an opening to lose. You take it. Because trying to fight losing doesn't always work. Yeah, some people, they're so concerned about feeling good that they always try to get out of feeling bad. But the only reason I was able to create all that content was because I really allowed myself to feel really bad. But I also knew always, I had already a good intuition to begin with. You know, I've already tried to tell you, in that sense, I ain't like everybody else. I don't know, I think not everybody can do what I do, because the information is all out there. And I seem to have and get the information, but I was also open to implementing it. Yeah, some people smoke cannabis, they keep doing that, they don't realize it makes them feel shit. I started to smoke cannabis and I started to question it immediately. Because I spent time with people that were smoking every day. And so, stick to the path, it says. You know, that's how I engage with my intuition. And so they were smoking every day and I started to do the same. I was smoking quite a lot, but I was also in nature. I was in South Africa, far away from cities. I didn't generally smoke in cities, I smoked in nature. That's how I got introduced to cannabis. And so I knew there's a different way of smoking. When I got back to cities and I smoked there, it was a bit different because now, you know, nature wasn't one step away. No, it was like 10 minutes away. And a lot of cars and a lot of smells and a lot of noise and a lot of, yeah, low vibrational stuff. So the best way probably to smoke is to first go into nature. Because where I was in bush camp, all I had to do was smoke and I was already in nature. The sun was shining, I was surrounded by animals, you know, some of them deadly, some of them not. In a sense, you could say that any animal could be deadly, yeah? I mean, a snail could be deadly. If you're walking around on a moist day and you slip on one and you hit your head, clutch! Yeah, you might die from that. So, you know, people say flying is one of the most safest ways to travel. Yeah? Compared to what? And who wants me to know this number? People who are selling tickets. So, you know, some people, they play chess and they want to feel like they're really good at it. So they write a book about stuff that other people came up with, while they never understood the basics of chess. And the basics of chess isn't just about winning or losing. It's realizing that in order to win, somebody has to lose. And that means if I play and my opponent wins, then I can say good game. You know, maybe I'm sometimes slightly irritated, but I can smile about it. I can say, hey, good game, because you beat me, man. I mean, good job. I mean, I was putting in my best effort. I was giving it my best shot, but you still beat me. You know, good game. That's how it is, you know? So I live, give it my best shot, and in the end, I'm gonna die. I know I'm gonna die. Whatever comes after is not really my concern, but I know it's gonna end one day. And that liberates me from, I don't know, thinking about all kinds of things. Because Hey. Because I know that some people will, like even the notion, that was a good example now. Now I'm walking here, I'm talking about life and death. If you go to some people, you know, that have just lost a relative, let's say somebody's mother died. And then they come to you and they say, oh, my mother just died. And then you're supposed to be like sad, like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, it's so bad. How does that help anyone? You know, why do I need to give somebody the feeling that it's bad if people die? Because, I mean, it was obvious that this person at one point was going to die. Yeah? And if you then say something like, well, I mean, it was about time, wasn't it? What are you saying? You're such an asshole. Ah! Yeah? And then they attack you because they think death is something really, really bad. And now we're coming to spirituality, duality, life, death, good, bad, yeah? And then, I don't know what's on the other side of a saint, but, you know, talk about Avatar. There's people that live on a planet called Pandora. They live there in perfect harmony, and they feel really happy. Yeah, and then other people come from planet Earth, and they threaten to fuck up everything because they're afraid to die. Because they've already fucked up their planet. So instead of going there and saying, hey, you really seem to know how to live in harmony with your planet, which is an organism, of course, which everybody should know, you know, it's like a living thing, then then what? Then what? Now come. She's gonna get used to it. Then what? Then the indigenes could have taught them, and then these people could have flown back and cleaned their own shit. But it's not that easy, is it? Because if all these people go back now and say, hey, we learned from the indigenous people, they taught us how to truly live. Yeah, that's how it could be. You know, they taught me something about life, and now I realize, you know, Earth is my mother. Yeah, and I've been given life so that I can make a difference. And then you go back there and you go to your boss and you say, well, you know, all these ships, this gigantic fleet, I commanded them to go back and to bring back the message to planet Earth. Well, what would planet Earth do? Like the people who are in charge, who funded that mission of going to another planet and exploiting it, well, they would fire them all. And then they would take other people, make sure this time, you know, they're a bit like more aggressive, you know, and they're really gonna go there and exploit the whole planet. That's how it is. So if you go into politics and you think, oh, I'm gonna really change something, well, then you don't really understand how the game is being played. Because nobody really changes anything in politics. I think the people who can really change something are the people who stay away from politics and just do their own thing and just spread the message in their own way by living their lives and by showing, hey, there is another way. Because if you are stuck in politics, you're also stuck in that, okay, there's funds, there's people who will give you money. I mean, I don't really know what Trump was about. But maybe he was trying to do something good, right? But his hands were tied. So he couldn't openly say what he was thinking. You know, that's just what I'm projecting onto him because some people thought he's our savior. Well, then they got Biden. And Biden just did whatever, you know, industrial players wanted him to do. Which was whatever, yeah? So you know, I'm not really pro-Trump or against Trump. You know, his methods are his deal. I don't really need to concern myself overly much with that, because he's spreading a different kind of message. But of course, at the same time, you know, they were making an enemy out of him. Literally. I mean, he was the enemy. And generally, if somebody is being depicted by people as the enemy, you know, like government people, then usually that person has a different side to them. Because why does the state want me to think specifically that Trump is a bad man, yeah, an asshole? You know, why do they have to judge him like this? You know, it's just like, that's like being a child. It's just being like, you're doing something else than I'm doing, so now I want everybody to hate you. Yeah, that's like gossiping in school. It's just stupid. It's just like, yeah, being childish in that sense. Yeah, whatever the word means, maybe it means that. And so, when I was watching that show, The Queen's Gambit, you know, at the end, you know, I'm not somebody who's like crying like this. You know, when I cry, it's just like a tear silently running down my cheek in a state of nice. Yeah? That's when I feel bliss sometimes. When there's a tear running down my cheek, it's like nice. Hey, that's like some emotional stuff. Yeah, and you know, spoiler alert, you know, skip 5 minutes if you don't want to hear it. You know, Elizabeth won against the Russian world champion, and she had somebody from the United States to tell her, like, to keep her safe in Russia, right? Because she now has become an asset to the USA, because now she could beat, you know, the Russian champion in chess. And so suddenly the USA started to have an interest in her as a kind of a scapegoat for their country, so that they can demoralize the people of Russia and make them look like fools. Oh, look at you, we beat your champion. And so in the end, again, spoiler alert, she's sitting in that car. And what's happening? That guy's saying to her, you know, that's after she beat the Russian world champion. And then the guy's saying to her, hey, we've already set up a meeting in the White House, and we're gonna take pictures, and you're gonna stand in front of a chessboard, you know, and that's gonna really, you know, show it to Russia, you know, and gonna wipe the smile off their faces. And, you know, now the thing was, Elizabeth wasn't a pawn, you know, she was, in that sense, a queen. So, you know what she said? She said, can you please stop the car? And she just walked out. And then she went and she played with people on the street, because apparently chess is really big in Russia. I didn't know that. Now I do. Because she warmed up to these people. For the first time in her life, she was spending time in a country where people really love chess. You know, so all she had to do to play chess is go out and play chess. You know, she didn't have to play tournaments anymore. She just had to go and play chess with people that love playing chess. I mean, what's better than that? And when that scene happened, I had that tear running down my face. And I thought, it's so beautiful. She just does what she wants to do. And I thought, you know, I was sure that this series was made by a woman. And it wasn't. It was made by men. And that's, of course, something also quite remarkable, because men can be soft too. They don't have to be like overly hard. They don't have to be like super tough all the time. You know, I'm tough in a sense, you know, and that's why I mean, you know, when I cry, I don't you know, break down into tears. No, I hold my space and I feel what I'm feeling as the tear or the tears are running down my face. You know, I didn't really expect that. Sitz. Cheers. Ja. Und los. Ja. And that to me was just a really nice story. And to wrap it up, right, you need to learn. You don't need anything, of course. You need to learn how to stand above other people's greed, or other people's hatred, or other people's, you know, wish to score a win. You know, what do I care if a country has a win? To me, the country is nothing. You know, the country exists and I have to deal with that. That's all. You know, it's like a bunch of people that used force and terror to secure a section of, you know, earth. And then they say, that's my section now. Well, in 1,000 years, all these people will be dead. So what do I care? You know, their little power games that they play to make themselves feel important. And I like to say it like this, you know, so that they can stand around and clap each other on the shoulder. Right? So that to me is just, it's child's play. They don't really understand what it's about. But at the same time, if they wouldn't be like this, I couldn't understand what it's about either. Because one of the reasons I don't like all this competition is because I see how people are that compete a lot. And I get it, people want to compete with me, but what they don't understand is that while they want to see me as competition and they're trying to like push me around so that they can feel a bit better about themselves and to smile about me when I'm still learning, you know, they don't really care about how I feel. That's generally how it is. I mean, people feel shit about themselves, and when I'm happy, they're trying to destroy that because they don't feel like this. Because then they start looking up to me, they don't like that. So they don't realize I don't really look down on them. But I believe that it's everybody's own responsibility to work themselves to a place in themselves where they feel good. And something else that I realized a lot about so-called spiritual people is they read all these books on spirituality, yeah? But at the end of the day, they don't understand what it's about. And you can usually tell that when you listen to them, that they use all these really fancy words. I generally don't use a lot of fancy words. I don't go around reading all this stuff about spirituality so that I can use really fancy words to look smart. No, because I feel smart already. I'm like a fox, right? I can think my way out of anything, or rather feel myself. Thinking may help to a certain degree, of course, just by sorting out your emotions, yeah? And now we're getting again to the mind. What does the mind do? You know, I've been trying to explain that, but it's a very complicated thing, right? To just say that's consciousness and that's the mind and that's spirituality, because it's such a broad thing. You know, what spirituality to me is might be something else to other people. To me, spirituality, I've said that, is a set of methods that help you to connect with yourself on the inside. And for that, it's important to practice to be silent. It's really important. Yeah. why don't you try that? You might think now, be a bit of an asshole. Well, I don't force you to listen to me. And maybe you think, how does he know that? You know, how does he know that I was just thinking that? You know? Because I know. Because I know how to take all these kinds of perspectives. And that's what sometimes hurts me. That I know what people might think of me. Because I've been thinking it myself sometimes. But then I looked at it and I realized that feels a bit bad. And not bad, yeah, it feels a bit nasty. You know? I don't really want to destroy. I want to build. But for that, sometimes you need to destroy certain things in order to build up something. You know, I had to be like severely destroyed. Bam! Really pushed into my depression. And I was always trying to run away from home. Already as a child, I was trying to run away from home. Because I didn't want to be there with these people that all feel and look so miserable. But then I realized at one point, I have nowhere else to go. You know, I'm unfit for this shitty world where everybody just hates each other and themselves. So I had to learn to get a bit tough. So yeah, while I do realize that certain people might look down on me, I just know that on the inside they feel really shit. And so, what's the point of wanting to destroy somebody? And recently, when I've been playing chess, sometimes I play against myself, you know, by moving the figures on both sides of the board. And sometimes I play against other people. And in the beginning, I was sometimes like really aggressive and I just wanted to destroy them. I said, I'm just gonna barge into your group of pawns and check your queen. Yeah? But that's like a bit reckless, of course. So I've been practicing that a bit. To calm down a little, to not be overly aggressive, to try to be a bit nicer when you're playing, and also to not mope about when you lose. So I lose a game, I might give it another shot. Yeah, and then I lose again against the same opponent. And what do I do then? Well, I might try again. Yeah, but I also don't have to. Because if you keep losing, it's also kind of hard. Because I'm also not, you know, I'm not trying to lose. It's just so happened that I lost. Because I don't know all the moves yet. Yeah, I don't know all the possible constellations. So of course, the more chess you play, the chess of life or the board game, the more constellations you will be able to pick up. And that's then why, you know, when you learn how to play chess, you just keep playing it, but at the same time you use it to work on yourself. Aha, what does it say about me if I'm playing like this? And if I'm just taking my queen and I just barge into you know, the line of defense from my opponent, and then the queen is being taken, that means I don't appreciate my figures very much. And it's also a really stupid move, because I'm just sacrificing people. Oh, you go in there, you go in there. And that's often how I treated other people also in my life. You know, I had friends, and then I told that person to fuck off. But it was also good that I did that, because they didn't want to listen to me. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to have all their opinions. I didn't want to hold their hands anymore. Yeah? But I thought I did. And so, yeah, it's just like, all right. Yeah. Chuk, 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 chuk. Hello. Yeah, so Partly, of course, also what taught me to appreciate life a little more is that dog. But I also know, I also have to take care of myself. As much as I love her or appreciate her or I'm grateful for her, I also have to be grateful for myself. And that means, I'm really focused to being in my room and creating content. And if that means today I'm gonna eat something, I'm gonna do that. Sometimes I put down the camera because I really have to pee and I don't want to stop this recording, so I just put it down on the ground somewhere, and I go somewhere and I pee. Now it's something natural, everybody pees. If your pee smells bad and it's like really yellow, maybe you have to drink more. Certainly stop drinking all these sodas, like whatever Coke is, They marketed really well by pretending it was supposed to be some kind of stomach medicine. And that's stuck in the mind of people. I mean, they're drinking it because partly today it's really strange. Because my feeling always, okay, I come to a crossing and now I could of course go back, I could go into the forest, I could go down, I could go up. A part of me wants to go up and then a voice says go down. And then I am still considering it and then the voice says do it! And then I'm doing it. But what am I doing? Whatever. I feel like I want to go down because I haven't gone there yet. And that's sometimes a bit scary. And that's the thing that keeps people trapped at their home because they are afraid to do something new. And right, if you are trapped and thinking that's good, that's bad, what's bad about walking a path you've never walked? I can walk for hours at night because my eyes have got used to it, but not really, because my eyesight is not the best. I mean with that, my vision is kind of blurry. I sometimes do some kind of eye stretching by closing my eyes and then looking up as far as I can. Because I at one point said, I don't want to wear glasses anymore. Because if you keep wearing glasses, you will probably never do eye yoga, or eye stretching exercises, and that then means that the tendons and sinews and muscles inside your eyes are going to be tighter and tighter and tighter. And that's why people who wear glasses or people who wear contact lenses, usually their eyesight worsens over time. Until they get to that place where somebody comes and says, hey, why don't you go and have your eyes lasered? And they say, oh yeah, does that really work? And then somebody comes and lasers them. I would never do that. Because I don't really know what that does. They're just like, it's like being a man. And then you think, oh, I should be a woman. Because you're out of balance. And then, some kind of people say, oh, you know, why don't you go and change your gender? It's impossible. You cannot change that. You know, cutting away your penis won't make you a woman because you've been born a man. And that's how confused people are. You know, that's how science also can confuse people. It's fucked up. And so when I think about life as a whole and I look at nature, it's already perfect. But people are unable to see that. So they go around and hacking it all down because they feel like, you know, they're all angry. So they let it out on nature. You know, I've said that already, you know, when I was, hey, I'm not gonna go pee now, it's just, that, you know, that thing here is always coming loose. Maybe I have to make a double knot. You know, that's like looking at what is happening in your life. Oh, I'm tying my shoelaces, but they always come loose. Maybe I should tie them in a different way or stop wearing shoes, you know, one of those things. But I can only do that if I pay attention to what is going on, right? And I've been paying a lot of attention to a lot of things. So because I know how angry I am, because I've looked at my anger, I can look at other people and realize, holy shit, I mean, that guy is really angry. And by looking at, I mean more like I can feel when I'm in the presence of other people, I can feel how angry they are because I remember how it felt like to be as angry as them. While I was as angry as they were, you know, I didn't see much difference. But now in many ways I've overcome that anger, you know, overcoming it, surmounting it. And now in the topic of climbing the mountain of yourself again. So some people, they just stay angry, they identify with it, and I really want to stop making sense. I just want to have a good time talking. But then I always think, oh, but what should I tell these people? You know, what should I tell them? You know, what do they need to hear? I'm talking about spirituality. Doesn't that have to be like overly important and make sense? But then I always stop, you know, talking about the things that I actually want to talk about. I don't really know what that is. You know, I wanted to like seem really smart, you know, talk about really important spiritual things. And one of these terms, of course, is disassociation. You know, but the thing is, every time I get to that and I say disassociation, it's a very fancy word and it means basically the same thing as meditation or quieting your mind. Disassociation just seems like something like a very fancy term. That brings me back to the Queen's Gambit, where Elizabeth is sitting in that room, and there's like these reporters and they're taking pictures and they're recording an interview, and then that reporter is starting to ask her really nasty questions. Like really nasty questions. I mean, like really, those questions are really not nice. Yeah, that kind of questions. You know, like digging in other people's shit to make them feel bad. In the end, she even says to her, maybe you should considering playing bridge instead. Why? Yeah, because she doesn't like it. You know, she is like a reporter woman. You know, it's like Rita Skeeter from Harry Potter. You know, she's just concerned about looking good herself. And she thinks it's a good idea to make other people look bad so that she can look good. That just shows she's an asshole and she's afraid of looking bad in front of other people And so she's just defiling others all the time. So I really don't like that. And that's why, you know, when you're in a conversation, you know, sometimes I watch Jordan Peterson and I'm really, you know, he's quite skilled in terms of conversational ping pong. He knows what some people are saying, but not just, you know, the words they use, but also what's behind those words. You know, sometimes somebody's asking you a question and then several doors open. You know, somebody can ask you a question, how are you doing today? Because maybe they're really concerned about how you're doing. Some people might ask you how you are doing because they actually want to open up the topic about that they are feeling bad. So actually they're not really interested in how you feel, they just want to let you know how they feel. You know, that's like a sneaky way of getting attention and to loading your problems onto another person. Sometimes people might ask you how you're doing, and that's just an opener so that you start feeling comfortable in their presence. And then they keep asking questions, but their agenda is to get to a certain topic. So let's say somebody is a public figure and they want to dig up some dirt. So they first look at that person's history, what the person has done, and then they start asking questions with the intention of getting to a very uncomfortable place in their lives so that they can ask a question, catch them unawares, and make them feel uncomfortable in front of a camera or a microphone, yeah? So that they can show to the world, oh, you know, that person seems so perfect, but look at that, right? He just lost it there and started screaming at me. I mean, what an awful person. And that's then what people are going to say. And, you know, they really take advantage of you. You know, it's just everybody's like picking on each other. So if you go into politics and you want to change something there, at least prepare yourself. Because you're going to deal with a bunch of assholes. You know, that's like, I mean, these people are living in hell. You know, and they're going to come with daggers. You know, daggers maybe not like that. But they're going to have daggers the way they look at you. Their thoughts are going to be daggers. Their words are going to be daggers. You know, sometimes people say something to you and there's such violence in what they say. You know, it can literally hurt you. I once had somebody who was incredibly angry. You know, and I stopped, you know, I walked away from that person and the person came after me and I felt a pain in the back that was so painful. I literally, all I could do was to just like force myself onward into some kind of space where I could just sit in nature and cleanse myself of that. And that's to me why I stay away from people. At the same time, I prepare myself to be somehow in the public, yeah? Because I don't know, I mean, I'm creating a lot of content, that means eventually people will start paying attention, because it's also really nice content, I believe. And that means, you know, they're gonna come and they're gonna give me shit. Because they feel bad and they see, oh, that person, you know, seems to rise above. That person seems to have something to give. And then, of course, everybody wants a piece of that. Yeah? And I'm gonna give you a piece of quiet time. You know, enjoy or hate it. If you hate it, just realize it's not the quiet time you're hating. No, you're just really angry. And so if it's quiet and you start getting angry, that's just you. So look at that anger and work with it. Okay. So sometimes there are words that always come back. Can't really say why. They're just there. It's like the word quit. And then I remember The Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter says quid pro quo. I realized I don't really know what that means. It seems like, you know, there's like a receipt in German, it's called a Quittung. So you may think to quit means to stop, but maybe quitting means tying up loose ends. And if you see it like this, because I often thought I have to quit whatever, or maybe I just have to tie up loose ends. So if you think, you know, I'm gonna quit smoking, then smoking is a loose end for you. So quitting smoking also means you have to tie up that loose end. Just as you're tying your laces, so that, you know, if you are a person that wears shoes, you will realize that if you don't tie them properly, they will come loose. So if you want to quit smoking, to understand why you smoke is quite important. You know, what's connected to inhaling things with your lungs. And I've said that also, you know, sadness is stored in the lungs. So to learn how to breathe into your stomach, because often we smoke. Why? Because we actually want to breathe, we want to inhale deeply. But then while we're smoking, you know, we don't just get rid of stuff, we also introduce things into our body. And so if you want to quit smoking, you have to start breathing. And if to quit means to tie up loose ends, so, you know, if you get a receipt, a Quittung for something that you've done, it's just a consequence. Yeah, so you've been inconsistent with your diet, you might feel bloated, and you might feel nauseous often. And that means the receipt or the consequence of that is you might be stuck in feeling nauseous and bloated all the time. So you have to do something about that. The way I do it at the moment, you know, I drink a lot of black tea because I want the black tea to kind of, you know, slightly lift me up out of my depression so that I can look at my depression from outside and then do something creative or go for walks. So black tea keeps me going. You also have to realize that black tea, in that sense, it riles you up. It's like whoosh. So you have to also know how to work with that, and that's why you also have to strengthen your body. So you see there's all kinds of things connected to stuff. Now I have loose ends with at least one person that's like looming over me. And I'm trying to find a way to tie up that loose end. So I'm looking for ways to meet that person. Yeah? And because that person is very dear to me, because it's a woman, and that means, you know, there's all kinds of things attached to that feeling. And so, yeah, I really want to meet her. And so I often look for ways to make that a reality. It's kind of hard because at the moment I am where I am, and that means I had to learn to be patient. Because what I learned with that incident earlier during the walk, there was this little doggy trying to hump Amy here. She didn't really want that, you know, he really tried, so I had to intervene. And so, right, if it comes to men and women, when a woman chooses a man and she's really game for it, you know, she will hunt that man down. If she is a strong warrior type of woman, she will do that. But if you aren't fighting alongside her, then why should she try to, you know, get back to you? If you just keep being stuck at, you know, I'm a smoker and I like smoking, or, you know, I like eating pizza, or I like watching movies, while that woman is trying to be a mother, raise children, and have a man that she can do that alongside with. And she also wants to grow spiritually, so she wants to do what her spirit tells her to do. So you have to listen. What is my spirit telling, right? There's like all kinds of birds calling, so you have to make a choice, you know, which bird to listen to. Right now you're listening to a bird called Christopher, who's twittering you all kinds of stuff because he sees a way through, because he has realized his own potential, and he has started to believe in himself. And that means that he realized he has something to give, and also that there's a woman he wants to give something to. One specific woman, only one woman. And Christopher has been looking for this all his life. And when he met her, he was so afraid, you know, that he was trying to cling to her. Yeah, but that doesn't work because, you know, she had stuff to do. And then I realized, okay, I also have stuff to do, because every time we try to be together, or they try to be together, Christopher was drawn to his laptop to write books and create content. Of course, Christopher didn't know that at the time, because that's how life is, right? You generally don't know what's around the corner. And that's why I've been walking kind of blindfolded. Now, that's also something I've picked up from Sleeping Beauty. Not so much the movie from Disney, but a story I listened to on a tape recorder or tape player as a child. And it was that the Sleeping Beauty was sleeping and being a beauty. And he was trying to get to her, so he was fighting himself to the top of that tower, and then something happened. I don't know what. I think the evil witch or something, I don't know, maybe she did something. And then the prince, who wanted to be with that Sleeping Beauty, fell into the brambles that the witch had created at the bottom, and they scratched his eyes, and he was blind. He was blinded, so he was running around blind, unable to see anything. And then I don't know how that happened, but the Sleeping Beauty awoke. You know, I don't really know the whole story anymore. For some reason she awoke, and at one point she found him, and the tears of her love healed his eyes. It's a beautiful story, isn't it? I mean, that's a really beautiful story. You know, I like walking in the dark. I also learned to see in the dark, because I learned to connect with my intuition. You know by now that when I talk about psychedelics, I don't say psychedelics are really necessary or awesome. I know how to use them, and that's why I use them. And now I'm talking more to the people who already had experience with, for instance, LSD, and that maybe don't really know what to do with that experience. So I would like to draw your attention to something that LSD did for me. I took a fairly small dosage on a festival twice around 100 micrograms. You know, it depends on who you are, how you are, and how your intuition is already. Because the thing is, some people, they take psychedelics, or let's say they take LSD. Hey, hello. And what do? They go and have sex with people, yeah? And then they go and dance, and they cuddle, and that means they open themselves up to other people, and in that situation the person makes them feel good. And when they get down again from that kind of trip to LSD land, because it is in that sense like a holiday, they try to get back to that place. But now they have a problem, because the way they felt during that experience was dependent on other people. So they had sex, or they had, they cuddled, or they danced with others. They didn't use it to connect with themselves, so they got drawn into other people. And that's why generally in ayahuasca ceremonies, or when you take substances, sometimes people take MDMA and they do these cuddle sessions where they just become one lump of people that take LSD and get drawn into one another. I had, during my second ayahuasca ceremony, there was a friend there with me, and we felt drawn to one another because we like each other. And then we sat down on a couch. In that sense, psychedelics are roughly all the same. They open you up, yeah? So you either open up to yourself or to everybody else. In a general sense, that's, of course, a process that works together. And that means it's a process that works together. Why? Because you start opening up more to yourself. You also try to understand, or begin to understand, how other people feel, what they need, what they want, all these kinds of things. So that means, because you're starting to connect with yourself, and because all selves are one selves, so one self, and that's then in spirituality oneness, of course, it's important to first connect with yourself, to figure out what you want and what you need, and to learn how to communicate that to yourself, to other people. And so that if you would be in some kind of partnership with a woman, or for me it's always man and woman. So if you're a man, then with a woman. If you're a woman, with a man. You would need to no. Okay. You would then be in a relationship, and in the relationship you could bring all the things you learned while being separate and working towards each other. Of course, now the problem arises. Let's say you are already in a relationship and you say, I have the feeling I need time for myself. So I would like us to spend some time apart, each do our own thing, and then meet again somewhere in the distance. There's a lot of potentiality for actually we're going to break up, because you don't know what's going to happen. But if your feeling tells you that's what you want to do, all you can say is phrase it, and then you will see how your partner reacts to that. Your partner may say, what does that mean? Do you want to break up with me? Then you can say, I don't want to break up with you, but I feel like, I don't know, something has to change. And then you have this classical conversation, it's a breakup. And it might be. You don't know that. You know, you could also try to say to the person, you know, I want to grow together with you, but for that, I just need more space for myself. And in the same time, you get space for yourself. And then we figure out, while we are still together, who we are as individuals. And that's then taking care of your needs. And she might not have that need, or he. But then you have to ask yourself the question, do you want to stay connected in that relationship, or do you want to end it? So for me, or for Christopher, who met that beautiful soul, that woman, you know, he sometimes said things he didn't even know why he was saying them. Things like, you know, I want to keep that to myself. But just things that he said, you know, when he realized how afraid he was to lose that woman. So he said things to her that even when they separated for a while, he was incredibly afraid of losing her. But it always reminded him, you know, what he had said, you know. And he realized he just loves her very, very much. And he really would like to be with her. Because it fit. Only at the time, it seemed like it didn't. Because they still had their own stuff to do. And so, in that sense, I can say, do I really know anything at all? So that's what I mean with having loose ends. So I first want to meet her. You know, before I want to be with anybody else. And that's every time I was somewhere and where there was a woman where I thought, oh yeah, she's also attractive. But then Christopher immediately got back to this, but what's with her then? You know, I can't leave her. I still, first I want to meet her. And then, you know, Christopher had all these kinds of thoughts where he thought, well, that's kind of weird because I don't even know if she feels the same about me. I felt like she did, but did he truly know? I'm trying to distance myself from myself. It's not really working. It's working to a certain degree. And it introduces a bit of change, because if I talk about myself in the third person, I can distance myself from myself. And I can also judge a bit better what I actually want to say. Because I'm not so drawn into this is me. Because sometimes we really need that, and Christopher needed that as well. But he also really needed to understand how he is when he's alone. Because I haven't really been alone a lot in my life. And whenever I was alone, I just felt shit because I didn't know what to do when I was alone. And, you know, the more Christopher lived his life, longing for this one woman, he realized every time he gets to this place where he feels this incredible love for this one woman, and then he started hating her again, and then he wanted to meet other women. But then he also realized that as soon as he would meet other women, you know, I didn't go out and date them, but I was just in their presence. One time Christopher was working somewhere and there was a woman and they started just feeling each other out. And I realized at some point, but wait, what are the consequences? Christopher realized at some point, what are the consequences? If I now, you know, I was going through it in my mind. I could now ask her if she wants to spend time with me. That would mean we would probably have sex. That would mean, what's with that woman? And every time I made the choice and said, I want to meet her. I want to meet her, even though, you know, Christopher was really scared of this. He still wanted to meet her to have another shot. Only by writing emails or letters, it didn't work because, you know, there's too much distance. And if there's really something between you, you know, being apart is real torture. But that's the torture you need sometimes so that you can suffer through all the stuff that scares you about losing somebody or being alone, so that if you meet that person again, suddenly it's okay. You know, all the stuff that was torturing you has now been transformed into content or a stronger body or a stronger mind, because you learned to hold your own space. And that's so important. And why was that? Because Christopher realized that this woman is so tough, like a really tough woman, like emotional and at the same time kind, but also really demanding. And he realized that's what he needs. He needs a woman that inspires him to become the man that she deserves. And at the same time, he also had the feeling she would do the same. So that's feelings, and now come thoughts. Right? At the same time, I have the feeling that we're both working towards each other, or Christopher had that feeling, or has that feeling. Then all these thoughts came, and they said, get another woman, just fuck somebody, do this, do that. But Christopher was, in that sense, really stubborn, or resolute, or true to his own feelings. Because his feeling towards her was so strong that he kept walking at a fairly steady pace, and he struggled, and he struggled, and he struggled. And he was trying, or he was working himself from one day to the next, just stumbling through life, making choices, just by consulting his feeling, his intuition, and then, yeah, in a sense, hoping that one day he will meet her again. But I didn't just leave it up to hope, yeah? I planted the seeds for this to actually happen. You know, I cannot control it. I cannot control her, and I cannot really control life. Unless I keep sitting around at home, you know, then life is fairly predictable because, you know, I'm going to sit at home and watch a movie, and I can do that every day, and then, you know, that's like, okay, fairly predictable. But I don't want to lead a predictable life. I want to open up to all kinds of things. New experiences, because that's what makes you feel. And yeah, I mean, Christopher really worked himself out of there. And he started to become stronger and stronger. And the stronger he became, the more certain he felt about his feelings towards that woman. So that in the end, I mean, he didn't even go climbing anymore. Because he knew if I go climbing, you know, I'm going to spend money and time to be with people that use me to patronize me, to make themselves feel better. You know, sometimes I would go climbing, or Christopher would, and then people would come and they would try to tell him how to climb, and he thought, you know, why do you need to do that? So they would get off on telling me how to climb, and then they would feel better about themselves, while I thought, I don't really need people to tell me how to climb. I already know how to climb. So all I have to do is climb. But I also realized that it's almost impossible to go to certain places and just only be with yourself, because then people come and they send you these kind of vibes. Because actually, if people are really trying to help you, you know, they want you to help them, to help themselves. But what you really need to do is help yourself. And that's why I go for a lot of walks, I go outside, because I realized I have to stay put. And because Christopher didn't want to chase after other women anymore, because the only woman he wanted and wants is the one he already met. And that felt so good, you know, that he stopped jumping around like a young kitten, you know, taking a poke at all these other kind of girly souls or whatever. No, because now he had a feeling connected to a soul or a being or a person or an entity, and that feeling became somewhat holy to him. So holy that he wanted to respect it. And even if Christopher would have never met another woman, he knew in his heart that if he would never meet another woman, he would simply continue walking this path on his own and learn to connect with her from a distance. And that's roughly how it all started. If I wouldn't have met her, I know, or if Christopher wouldn't have met her, he couldn't have done all these things. He couldn't have done all these things, but the thing is, he could have. Because now Christopher is talking to all kinds of people in the world that if you want something really a lot and you make choices because you are aware of certain consequences by opening your mind to the possibilities that each choice brings with it, then you suddenly realize, okay, you know, for example, yesterday, and I'm gonna say I was sitting in my room. I was coming from a hike and a voice in my head said, "Go out." I thought, what does that mean? Go out. And then I was playing around with that a bit in my head. Go out? Go out where? Go out. And I thought on go all out. I thought I'm already doing that. I mean, the internet is like full with my content. I mean, I'm already going all out. Now, what else should I do? And then I thought go out, and I thought go to a cafe. Go to a cafe and then what? Meet somebody there? I mean, why? Because what would I do there? You know, I have €5 at the moment, you know, as of when I think about now. So Christopher knew he had only €5 in his pocket. So he could go there and drink a tea, and then he would sit around there and wait for something to happen, you know? And then he would hope, oh, maybe she's gonna come there. But why would she? I mean, yeah, okay, there's a slight chance that might happen. But I felt, or Christopher felt, like, that's such bullshit. You know, I would go there because I've gone there already once, and then I would go back and I would think, why the fuck did I do that? So I tried to imagine, or Christopher did, you know, how it would be like to go there, you know, to walk into the city, to walk all this way into the city, which is a place he doesn't really desire to be, and then go to that cafe and then talk to people. And so, because he envisioned doing that, you know, he could feel how he would feel like doing that, and then he realized, no, actually, I don't want to do that. You know, what Christopher really wanted to do was to be at home and create content to place it onto his channels and to play chess and to walk and to do these kinds of things. And so Christopher made a choice and he said, you know what, I'm gonna stay put, you know, because in that sense I'm going to tie up loose ends with myself, because when I'm going to be, you know, I'm not just gonna go into a cafe if I don't really feel like it. You know, if I would have really felt like it, I probably would have done it. But what I really feel like is being alone. Because going to a cafe usually means what? You know, the only people who go to cafes are people who are kind of lonely and who want to mingle, yeah, who want to have a good time. But to me, doing that is not a good time. It's a waste of time, because I feel like I don't have time to do all these things. And that's why when I go walking, I bring my camera, so I make the most of my time that I have at the moment. So I create content, lots of it, because I know that, you know, it's gonna pay off. That's the feeling I have. And, you know, a feeling and knowing, because with knowing or thinking, you know, also comes all kinds of other thoughts, you know? It's like, I think I know something, and then I think, but do I really know? And then comes doubt. Yeah, and then you just have to maintain that feeling rather than the thought, because the thought can be replaced fairly easily with fear and all kinds of things. So it's a better way to use feelings that move you through life. And now when I'm talking about that experience I had with LSD, or Christopher had, I find that a bit silly, but it also puts a smile on my face if I say that every time. You know, Christopher was there and he took LSD like millions of other people have already done. And like lots of these people also did. And while everybody was dancing around, doing their kind of thing, you know, I was there with a friend. Me and that friend, we just walked around. We didn't dance, we didn't participate. We just stood around and observed. We sucked it all in. You know, we didn't need to go to the dance floor and dance with them. I mean, we did that, but not when we took LSD. And then my friend went to bed, and after a lot of things that happened, and next morning, I think I went to a sweat hut. Oh yeah, he went to bed early because he was tired. I went dancing, and I went nuts on the dance floor, but I didn't dance with anybody. I only danced with myself, and I had such incredible energy. You know, I was so full of power. I was like dancing around in circles, and there was like a forest, and you know, the ground wasn't even, it was like quite steep. And there were all kinds of people, they were all drunk and stoned and high and whatever. You know, there was a lot of music and noise, and it was dark, but there were like artificial lights. And I was dancing around in circles. And I did not once crash into a person. You know, I was like doing pirouettes around myself, you know, for probably an hour. Just dancing around, bam, 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 in bare feet. And that feeling is something then that, yeah, sure, I connected it with LSD. Now I first want to talk about the second experience I had, which was on another festival where I also took like 1 drop of, you know, pure LSD, 100 micrograms, and I took that, and you know, everybody else just did some stuff. And what I was doing, I was feeling. I didn't think. You know, I would go to a place and then I would sit there and then I would maintain the fire. And there was like a sauna or like a sweat wagon, and everybody went to bed, and I felt like, you know, I'm going to clean that place and I'm going to open a space for people to come into and relax. And so I did that. I maintained the fire, and I kept the sauna going, and once in a while I would go into the sauna and sweat. And I also was there with another person, and that person just mingled with people while I was there doing like spiritual energy stuff. You know, I was just holding my ground, and that's when I learned through LSD, oh, that's intuition, man. And I also realized, okay, when I follow my feeling, I have a lot of energy. So to me, LSD showed me a place in myself where I felt like really good, really content, really patient, and in the moment. No thoughts, just pure being and presence. Yeah, meditation, but, you know, all the time. And I did that. And that was so strange, because I've never felt that, but when I felt it, it was right on. And that was my compass. You know, that started to show me that's intuition. You know, I didn't read an awful lot of books, I already said that. You know, I just felt myself from one experience to the next. You know, I felt like maybe doing truffles, so I did it. But I also knew how to do it. And that's the difference. Some people, they just do it because they want to party or relax. You know, I didn't do it to relax. I did it to learn. And I learned a lot. And it's all out there. It's all out there on the internet. You know, all of the stuff that I have learned thus far. Yeah. And that's a good thing. And because I learned how to channel, you know, when I feel shit, I channel that into my creative work, and then suddenly I feel good. I transform the energy that causes or is the root of my depression, and I transform it into something that I find beautiful. So if I look at my content and there's this playlist Artistic Madness, it's just so beautiful. Or these songs I created, I look at them and they warm my heart. And also something I realized, the more I kept doing this, also the easier it became to get to that place without hating first. Before, when I would record an episode for my podcast, I often would get incredibly angry in between because I wasn't able to maintain this kind of balance where I simply, you know, talk about stuff. I mean, I'm not like lovey-dovey, you should know that by now. You know, I'm not talking about this and I'm not saying like, oh, it's all so beautiful, you know. I'm like, hey, there's a good and a bad side to everything. Because I'm in the middle, you know, I don't judge these things, I just realize there's always two sides, yeah? So there's nature and then there's people that want to destroy it. I also realized that probably at a certain point, humanity is gonna go back to some kind of balance, yeah? But for that, people like me are incredibly necessary. And these people have to know how to hold their own space, you know, how to deal with their own emotions, so that when they are also in a relationship, you know, which should be a place where you raise a child and where you allow that child, which is a young being or a soul or an entity, can make experiences and grow up in a loving environment. But that loving environment needs to be created in an environment of fear and angry people. And that's the challenge, because there's all kinds of things, you know. It's like, okay, I want to be a father, but I also feel like I don't think my child needs to go to school. And maybe it does, you know, I don't know that yet. You know, that's all in the future. Because I cannot really say that I hated school. School was what school was. And if I hadn't gone to school, I wouldn't have learned all these things about the world that I grew up in. And so I couldn't talk to people that also live in that world about the struggles I had and how I worked myself out of it. You know, if I would have just been born happy, you know, and everybody would have been happy, nobody would have anything to do, and then people would have probably gotten bored, and then they would have started to wage war against each other. Yeah, unless you teach them, of course, this is how you have to deal with your emotions. But then there's always going to be a person that won't feel like it. And then you can say, well, that person is bad. No, this person is necessary for change to happen. I mean, if we wouldn't have waged wars against each other, we would still be living in, I don't know, this kind of Egypt time. And that wasn't really perfect. So humanity is always going to change, because that's how life is, you know. It literally demands change so that it stays interesting. So yeah, we can look at the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, whatever that means, you know, where all the people that were somehow natural or healers, you know, they were all killed by the church because they said you're witches. But also because they did that, science started to become stronger. And then for a while it's like, science, you know, we need to move on. And now we're somewhere else. Now we have all these electronics. What does that mean? It means that humanity is growing as a unity, because there are people who still live in huts, in forests, yeah, in like jungles. There are these people. And it's good maybe that these people exist, because they remind us of how we could live. But in terms of like consciousness or, you know, knowledge, how to work machines and stuff, you could say we're a bit more evolved. Now it's just about finding that balance again between, okay, I'm kind of like thinking like an engineer, so my mind is racing in all kinds of directions, trying to solve puzzles. You know, that's what humans are really good at. You know, under the right circumstances, you know, and probably also with the right diet, the right environment, you know, you can really hone those skills. So you have to make space for yourself where you can learn how to do that. And that comes from a place of feeling. How do I feel about myself? I feel shit. Okay, why? And then you continue. You know, I'm angry at a woman, but at the same time I like love her so much it hurts. So that anger is pain. So I suffer through it. I learn a lesson. I learn to deal with it. And at a certain point, you know, I feel that there is pain. And instead of getting angry, I just channel it back into my heart. And then I acknowledge it there and I warm it up with love. And then it's like, oh, nice. You know, it's like acceptance, letting go. You know, and that's like spirituality in a nutshell. Looking at the whole picture instead of just saying that's bad. Because what's good? You say that's bad. You know, if you say capitalism is bad, then you cannot do what I do. Because you cannot earn money in this system because you hate it. And that means you're going to basically saw off the leg you're standing on. Because it's going to numb you. It's going to keep you trapped in hatred. So instead, you know, learn to deal with it. Learn to embrace it. And look at what you feel like and what you want. But it's difficult. But if a emotion is nourished by fear, then you can learn to distinguish it after a while. You can realize, oh wait, the reason I want to go to the pub today is actually because I'm afraid that, you know, she's with another man. And for that reason, I have the feeling I want to go to a pub so that I can meet another woman. And then you see it, you know, how your actions are being driven by fear. And then you say, you know what, I'm just going to stay put because nothing good will come from running around like a headless chicken. No, instead, I'm just going to learn how to be patient and to wait until life presents me with an opportunity, right? Until either more people are watching my content and reading my books or something, or until maybe she contacts me, or maybe some kind of offer comes my way, right? So I'm staying open for the things that will eventually help me to at least meet her again, so that I can see what it's about, right? Because only when I meet her, when I see her, I can say, you know, that's what that feeling was. Because then I can also tell, okay, is she also, how does she engage with me? Has she done her homework? Has she done her homework to get also to me? Or has she fooled around with other men? Because if that's the case, I mean, nothing bad in that sense is really happening, because all that happens, then I was wrong, but the feeling that I had towards her still helped me to create all this beautiful content. So I had to suffer a great deal to get to the point where I can just talk and walk for 2 hours and just produce really nice videos, one after another, and images, yeah, and songs, and do all of this. You know, it comes all out of myself. And at the same time also learned to be more patient with others, to be more patient with other beings, also dogs, and to also allow others to have freedom. Yeah? Because if you think humanity is an asshole and shit, then you're gonna have trouble to give something to others. And if you have trouble giving something to others, you cannot really produce content that will free others, and that means you cannot really free yourself. It's not that you have to create content. I mean, you could create other things. You could create, I don't know, yeah? It doesn't have to mean you have to create anything. You know, you could also be content by being okay with leading, in that sense, a more simple life, but maybe to you a simple life is what to me is, you know, because I also try to live a simple life. But to me, a simple life means having my own space. And that's then a vision I had, you know, to have my own space. So I used what I had available. I looked at the pieces of my own puzzle, and then I started puzzling, you know, putting them into the right places. And that's then, of course, liberating, because suddenly the puzzle becomes more complete. And while that feeling that Christopher had, that he loves that woman, you know, pushed him onwards, because that's what I said, you know, how I use fear to propel me to the next phase. But I'm not running after things that I don't want, because every woman I met after her just was missing something, because that woman wasn't her. Yeah? Yeah. And yeah, sometimes it's a little hard. But if that doggy is